So last time we read Zoey and Sassafras, Dragons and Marshmallows, we learned that Zoey had a great memory where she remembered learning about baby snakes with her mom and how sometimes they have a lot of snakes and sometimes there's a runt, which is a small one. And so remember what Zoey did? She got some worms to help it to feel better. And she was kind of puzzling over, well, what would a dragon eat though? Because now we have this little baby dragon. So let's see what happens in this chapter. Chapter 8, The Food Experiment. All this thinking about food made me hungry. My stomach gurgled loudly. Sassafras growled. Silly Sassafras, I ruffled his fur. I'm just hungry for lunch. Let's go back to the house. As we walked, I realized I had a great question for an experiment. I grabbed my brand new science journal and sat down with my sandwich. On the first page, I wrote, question. What do baby dragons like to eat? The baby dragon had scales like that little snake. I bet he was a reptile. If snakes ate worms, maybe dragons did too. Sure, this baby dragon was a lot bigger than a baby snake in the forest, so maybe he'd eat a lot of worms. I knew I should try several different kinds of foods just in case. I worried it might be hard to get the baby dragon to eat, so I picked some of my favorites. I set my choices on the kitchen table and wrote them all down. Materials: worms, apple slices, eggs, cheese, marshmallows, cereal, granola bar. I like how she labeled them too. Now, to make a guess, I would eat the marshmallows, but that baby snake ate the worm as if it tasted like a marshmallow. I shrugged. Maybe worms were like the reptile version of marshmallows. Hypothesis. You remember that word from science? It's like a guess. Hypothesis of what she thinks should happen. So she said, I think he will eat worms. Sorry, worms. Now I needed to set up my experiment. Every time I'm experimenting, my mom always tells me the exact same thing. Excuse me. Remember to change only one thing and keep everything else in your experiment the same. And by every time, I really mean she says it every time. I wanted to change the kind of food I was giving him, so I needed to keep everything else the same. I got 7 of the same white plates out of our cabinet. I measured out the same amount of each kind of food, 1 kind of food per plate. I grinned. This experiment would make my mom happy. So here were the materials she used. And remember, she's writing this all down in her science journal. Worms, apple slices, eggs, cheese, marshmallows, cereal, granola bar, and 7 white plates the same size. And she wrote 1 handful of each. Next, I decided what my steps would be. Step 1. Set 1 handful of each food on each plate at the same distance from the baby dragon. Step 2. Step out of the pen and watch him. Step 3. Write down what he eats. All set. I gathered my supplies in my arms and tucked my science notebook under my chin. When Sassafras and I got to the barn, I was surprised to see that the dragon was looking around a bit. Hey, little guy, I said softly. I've got some food here for you to try. I set each plate of food the same distance away from the dragon. He watched me with big, curious eyes. Once everything was in place, I stepped out of the pen to take notes. Baby dragon got up and carefully licked the food on the first plate. The cereal stuck to his tongue. He scrunched up his face and jumped back and pawed his tongue. Whoops. Do you think he liked it? I don't think so. I made a quick note in my journal. Dragons do not like cereal. Once he wiped off all the cereal pieces, he calmed down. Then his nostrils got really wide. He sniffed and took a few steps, then sniffed some more. He skipped all the other plates and went straight to the marshmallows. His little blue tongue shot out for a lick. His eyes lit up. He was so excited. He let out a little hiccup. A spark landed on the marshmallow and smoked a bit before going down. The dragon immediately gobbled up the toasted marshmallows. I had to giggle. Roasted marshmallows are the best. I bet he would really like s'mores. I wrote down my conclusion. Dragons love marshmallows. As Sassafras and I watched him cough out a spark to toast each of the marshmallows that were left, I made a decision. I looked down at Sassafras. We need to call him something other than little guy, I grinned. Let's call him Marshmallow. Sassafras purred in agreement. A few minutes later, Marshmallow was running and hopping around the pen, flapping his little wings as he jumped into the air. I couldn't stop laughing. Eating a whole plate of marshmallows would make me feel the same way. Sassafras couldn't resist the fun and joined Marshmallow in the pen. The two of them played and played until they fell into a fluffy, scaly heap. Sassafras was panting a bit, so I brought a big bowl of water to the pen. They eagerly drank with their heads side by side. Then Marshmallow settled down in the dirt. He tucked his tail in, rested his head on top, and closed his eyes. Time for another nap, huh? Marshmallow didn't make a peep. Through the barn windows, I could see that the sky was getting dark. Sassafras, I whispered. Time for dinner. Let's leave Marshmallow to sleep for the night. We'll see him in the morning. As Sassafras and I tiptoed out of the barn, I spotted the camera. Oh man, I couldn't wake the little guy now, and I wanted his sweet face in the photo. I'd have to take a picture the next morning. When I got back to the house, my dad was at the stove cooking. I grinned when I saw what he was making. Sassafras-shaped pancakes, a dad's specialty. He makes it look easy, but it isn't. Mom and I have tried to make them, but our pancakes end up looking like weird blobs. Dad looked up and smiled at my thinking goggles still perched on my head. What you been working on? He asked. I almost told him about Marshmallow, but then I remembered how he couldn't see magical creatures. Figured I'd better leave the details out about the baby dragon. Just some science experiments with Sassafras out in the barn. Dad flipped another pancake. That's great, honey. I'm so glad you two have been able to keep yourselves busy with your mom gone. Oh, we were keeping ourselves busy, all right. If Dad only knew. I could hardly wait for morning to come. First, I'd get my magical photo of that sweet little face. Then I'd spend the whole day playing with a baby dragon. Oh my gosh, that would be so fun. Let's see. The next chapter is called Sassafras, but I noticed there's a question mark at the end of it. So when we say it, we have to say Sassafras. I wonder what Sassafras will be up to in the next chapter. And I wonder what will happen with Marshmallow. We'll have to wait and find out later. Have a great day.